Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll start off with the Philadelphia 76ers. The last time we spoke about these guys had a 3-2 commanding lead going into Philadelphia at their home floor. But unfortunately, they weren't able to close out the deal there. I believe they lost that game 95-86. And then they ended up playing a game 7 in Boston, and they ended up getting smoked off the floor 112-88. So now, of course, we talked about Joel Embiid and we talked about James Harden often a lot on this podcast. And unfortunately, those guys' season is officially cut short, and they will not be making the conference finals. So with that being said, what's next for the Philadelphia 76ers? Where do they go from here in order to kind of get over the hump and, take that next step?
They're not getting over the hump, man. It's impossible. Like, it's a common denominator, man. If this team, has not gotten past the conference finals since AI, we're barely kids the last time this team made it to a conference finals, and they still didn't end up doing it. I think you just have to restructure the roster completely. You got to retool. You got to do something. I'm not gonna blame Doc Rivers heavily on this series. I think there's not much he could have done. Like, if your stars get outplayed by the other team's stars, you can't really do much in that scenario. But that's somewhere that you start. You get rid of the coaching. James Harden, I doubt he's going to be back here in Philadelphia. I really, really doubt it. I think he's going to go back to Houston. Where there's smoke, there's fire. All season long, we've been hearing about these reports about him going to Houston. And, there's some interest apparently in the Phoenix Sun. But I think he really goes back to Philadelphia. He goes back to Houston. I think that's the team that he always envisioned going back to if he never won a championship. He left there to try to win one, unsuccessful. And BD's going to be there. Let's be honest. He's going to be there. I think they end up packaging Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris and ship them off. I think that's their idea. But if you're a Philadelphia fan, I think this was heartbreaking because you have nothing to look forward to next season. I mean, if Joel Embiid goes for MVP again, is that really fun for you? Where's the enjoyment in that? So I think this team has a lot of question marks. I think they're going to end up breaking apart, and Embiid's going to be the last man standing. So.
That's very interesting. For one, he's never getting MVP again. I'll tell you that right now. He won MVP this season for a sympathy MVP. The whole world knows that.
Come on, man. Come on, fam. Come on. Don't do that. Why y'all doing that now, though?
It's a sympathy MVP. Everyone knows it. It was the media narrative. They don't want to give it to Jokic no more. They're blaming Jokic about not having playoff success. And then next thing you know, Embiid gets bounced out the second round and he choked. So I just don't think he's getting it again.
I doubt he's going to get an MVP again. It's going to be the same thing like what happened with Giannis after the bubble where he got sent off the floor by Miami, and then nobody even considered him for that next year MVP, even though he had a good argument for it. So of course I don't think Embiid's going to win MVP again, but it's tough.
Yeah, I would say the next year's MVP favorite is probably Giannis. But to go back to what you were saying, Philadelphia 76ers, what they could do, I don't know if they could trade Maxey because he's definitely their future. I'll give him that. But Tobias Harris, that guy has the worst contract in the NBA, by far, the worst contract. That guy is he's trash. He's trash. So I don't know what you could get for him. He makes $35 million a year, so I don't know what you get with that guy. But
I think a team like Utah or one of those teams that just want to pick up cheap wins,
Jordan Clarkson.
Those. I think he has 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
So I
don't think he has much left.
So yeah, he probably has a year left. I think one of those teams would take an expiring contract, to be honest. But still, though, it's how much value you're gonna get.
Yeah, Jordan Clarkson, he's not moving the needle for the 76ers. At the end of the day, Joel Embiid and James Harden, they didn't get the job done. But from where they go from here is clearly they have to make a move. And whoever's running, I'm not sure if Elton Brand's still running things over there, but that guy,
I'm almost 100% sure he is.
He's still running it. Yeah, that guy, he had to go 3 years ago. That guy is trash.
Didn't they bring in Daryl Morey?
Oh, you're right.
They did. I mean, he brought Daryl Morey. He brought everybody from Houston.
I swear, Elton Brand is still there though.
I don't know if he's still there.
Check
that has to go. They chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. That's embarrassing, but. But one thing I have to mention is Ben Simmons. I think he had the last laugh for this organization because
he's going to China. What do you mean he has a last?
Okay, but listen, he for Ben Simmons, he had the last laugh because everyone blamed him in Philly, and then for him to leave like 2 years now, they still haven't gone past second round with him or without him. So that just like proves that everything Joel Embiid, all those sneak disses he was giving him, like when he was there and when he left, like he still did nothing with him without him. So, yeah,
I think he is still general manager, by the way. Elton Brand.
Yes,
I
so
believe.
yeah, Elton Brand is general manager. Daryl Morey is president of basketball
There
operations.
you go.
yeah, no, Elton Brand should be fired. Like he should have been fired 2 years ago. That guy's absolute garbage. But as I was saying, yeah, Ben Simmons got the last laugh. Joel Embiid he's just not a playoff performer. So where they go from here is clearly they have to build around him. So if that's panicking and trading Maxey, that's what they're gonna do. Maybe get Damian Lillard or something like that. I'm not sure what that will do either because I don't really believe in Damian Lillard in the playoffs either.
Okay, come on, like at least Damon Embiid gives you a better chance though, a way better chance.
But losing Harden in free agency and then trading Maxey and Tobias for Dame, I don't know what I'll get you, but
and get you much.
That's tough. You still got PJ Tucker on the team with him. Dame, PJ Tucker, and Embiid, man.
yeah.
Something at least, but
it's a good leader right there, man. PJ Tucker.
No, I respect PJ, but he didn't go outside in that game 7. I respect PJ.
Oh yeah, he had a better game 7 than Joel Embiid.
Than both of them, bro.
then both of them.
I mean, that's pretty embarrassing.
All right.
But yeah, man. For me, man, Philadelphia, man, failed operation. You know, James Harden's gone, Embiid yet again. You know, not showing up in the playoffs, second round again, and him underperforming, him not being there for a couple of games in the series. You know, they could have ended it game 6. You know, game 7 came by. Third quarter was, 55-55 at a point in time, and out of nowhere, they're down 30. So to me, they didn't come into that game 7 with heart, and guys like Maxey, guys like Tobias Harris, now they might have to take the boot from the team just to rebuild. Obviously, Tobias Harris, shittiest contract in the book. He's getting 185 to basically play like John Collins, man. Give you 5 points, 5 rebounds, a couple games. Might give you 15, here and there, but doesn't really add to the team much. And, he's a cone on defense. And then, Embiid, man, you got your MVP this year, but they ain't never giving you another one. I promise you. After this playoff performance, the way you cry for your MVP, and then the post press conference, him, coming out trolling, basically saying, "Hey, man, it's what did Giannis say a couple weeks ago?
It's not failure, it's steps to success.
It's not failure, steps to success. So, and, him trolling, coming out saying that, to me, you're not getting another MVP, but Philadelphia, James Harden's about to walk, and guys like PJ Tucker and Tobias Harris, they're about to get the boot from the team. Hopefully Maxey doesn't, because, he's a young star. He could take the next step with the team, but, who knows what happens. And Doc Rivers, I don't know how much game 7s that this guy has choked so far.
It's 10. It's 10, by the way.
10 at the point?
10.
Yeah, him. I feel like it's time to go to the reporting booth and start reporting instead of being a coach. Go join Mark Jackson and Van Gundy instead of being a coach, because this guy, man, he's living off that 2008 Finals ring against the Lakers. Other than that, there's not much done in history for him. There's a bunch of choke jobs, there's a bunch of 3-1 blown leads, and not another Finals appearance. So for me, it's a lot going on in Philadelphia, but they got to blow it up.
I want to start off by first saying that Joel Embiid is the only MVP to not make it to the conference finals. So once we put that into perspective, we've had a lot of MVPs come and go in our league, and only one guy in particular has not gone past the second round. But to get back to this series overall, before I talk about the future of the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, in game 6, Jason Tatum has the worst game of his career, and these guys aren't able to capitalize at home. So there's just no way in my right mind where I'm sitting here overthinking, like the Sixers are about to go into Boston for a third time and beat him again. It just wasn't possible. It wasn't going to work like that. So I knew they had no chance in game 7. And I mean, it took Jason Tatum to break the game 7 record that Steph Curry set 2 weeks ago by dropping 51 points. It's kind of tough to beat a team when their best players is going off like that. But in that situation, Joel Embiid is supposed to be matching that. Not necessarily saying he's supposed to be dropping 50, but, he's supposed to be putting up his numbers, 30 points, and James Harden's supposed to be coming along with him. But, for James Harden, this is something I've always expected from him come postseason time. A lot of people come into the postseason with the expectation of James Harden is going to perform. I don't come into the postseason with that expectation for him, because I know this guy somehow, some way is going to choke We've seen it year after year after year. So this is kind of like just rinse and repeat. Is old news. But for Joel Embiid to come out in this game 7, arguably one of the biggest games of his career, and have a performance like that, especially in a year where he won MVP, it's a bit shocking. It's a bit embarrassing. But for the Philadelphia 76ers, I think it's the right move that should happen for them. Should be a move for a superstar. They're gonna have to somehow, some way package Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and somehow, some way get a superstar that doesn't necessarily want to be wherever they're at right now. That could be Damian Lillard. That could be somebody else. I don't think bringing James Harden back into the fold would be any good for this franchise. He doesn't necessarily provide anything for you offensively, outside of his playmaking. But you don't when you have a guy like Joel Embiid and you pair him up with a guy like James Harden. Like I've always said, you're not necessarily bringing him to kind of run the show for you. Running the show for you is a plus, but in the postseason, you got to be able to produce like some scoring output in the box score when you're looking at the end of the game. Like James Harden's supposed to be up there with about 25, 26 points, with Joel Embiid's 30, 34, 35. But unfortunately, we got a couple games of James Harden going off in this series. But unfortunately, the stinkers were just so bad to the point where it just wasn't enough for the Philadelphia 76ers to overcome. But let's go ahead and get into this quote a little bit. Post game, they caught. I wouldn't necessarily caught, but Joel Embiid in the post-game presser said that me and James, we just can't win alone. That's why basketball is played 5-on-5. I know this quote is taken out of context a little bit when you look at the whole interview, but this quote alone is kind of what stood out the most from this post-game conference, especially in the fashion that they just lost Game 7, and where him and James Harden had one of the worst games of their career. So what are our thoughts on this?
I mean, the whole quote. He said this: "We got an unfinished job. We haven't won anything, and I think we got the chance to win. Obviously, going to 7 games and having a chance to close it out at home, which we didn't do. I still believe we got the chance, and so on and so forth." He said, "But it's gonna take more than us. We got to look at ourselves. I got to be better, and I will be better. But that's what I'm focused on. All of us, we got to come back and find ways to just keep improving and help the team. We can't win alone. I can't win alone. Me and James, we just can't win alone. That's why basketball's played 5-on-5. So we just need everybody to keep trying to find ways to get better, and we'll be fine." I think that quote is fine. He's admitting that he has to be better, and James has to be better, and the whole team has to be better. Of course, he's gonna say me and James. Those are the two stars. That's what everybody's gonna be looking at. But it doesn't just take them two. But at the end of the day, I do think, in some way, it is escaping by some accountability. I think the quote is egregious for people to just go ahead and take it out of context. I think what Embiid is saying is pretty clear that me and James have to be better, but it's not going to take us solely. And some of that is true. There is some roster deficiencies in this Philadelphia team, but at the end of the day, your two stars have to show up, and they both have to be better. So, this quote, I didn't have a big problem with it. I think Embiid is on the right track, but the rest of the post conference, what Big H was talking about, the guy trolling with saying, it's not failure, it's success. That's my problem, like with stuff with that. But with this quote, I don't have a big issue with.
Yeah, I have a big issue with this quote. So to start off, basically, I feel like he needs to take more accountability. Like, stop mentioning the other players on the team saying it's a 5-on-5 game. I need him to take more accountability on himself. There's only been 2 instances of the NBA scoring leader making the playoffs and being outside of the top 10 points per game. Joel Embiid in 2022 and Joel Embiid in 2023. So he needs to stop mentioning it's a 5-on-5 game. To look in the mirror. The series loss is like at least 75% on him. Like, he's a playoff dropper. I don't know what he does in the playoffs. I could go in and say, so Joel Embiid, he has 5 playoff series won in his career, right? I'm gonna give you guys the top 4 minutes played in each series that he played against. So in 2018, he played the Miami Heat. The 4 players with the most minutes played in the Miami Heat that series were James Johnson, Goran Dragic, Kelly Olynyk, and Josh Richardson. In 2019, he played the Brooklyn Nets. The 4 most minutes played on that team were Joe Harris, D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, and Spencer Dinwiddie. In 2021, it was Bradley Beal, Westbrook, Rui Hachimura, and Davis Bertans. And Raptors 2022 was Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, and Gary Trent. And in 2023, the Nets, it was Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and Royce O'Neal. So Joel Embiid needs to stop saying that's a 5-on-5 game, just take more responsibility. This guy is not a playoff performer. And from those names I just listed, the best player he's ever beaten in the playoffs is Bradley Beal. That's just flat out embarrassing. So he needs to take more accountability on himself and just get better.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, he should come out, take more accountability, and talk about his performances in the series and the games that they lost and why he could have helped or could have done better in those games. But I mean, the quote, is gonna get taken out of context. People are gonna pick apart the quote and single out single parts of it to talk about their agendas and to fulfill what they want to think about him and stuff like that. So I mean, but at the same time, to me, it's a little accountability on his side. Don't mention 5-on-5. Don't mention, hey, me and James. Just on your part, what could you have done better, and what could you do better later on, and if you guys get in this position again. So a little more accountability.
I just think it's hilarious. He's in a game where obviously the quote is taken out of context, but it's still the quote it is what it is. He's talking about me and James. I don't care if it's him and James are the two stars on the Philadelphia 76ers. Those are the two players that played the worst in a game 7 with the biggest game of the season. So, him being the leader of this team, him going through everything he went through this past season, and going back to those couple of years where he was running up for MVP, and then this year he finally cracked it. He was able to achieve that trophy that he's been chasing for so long, and then to come out with with a performance like this, where in the series that they really needed him to kind of step up and be that guy. And so I think you guys hit it around the head. Accountability is key, and I think that's one thing that Joel Embiid lacks. I feel like he can do a lot better. He could definitely do a lot more on the floor, but when he's out there settling for jumpers, thinking he's a shooting guard and things like that, he has to learn how to play his game, which is abusing guys like Al Horford that are on him. You can be getting double teamed, but then that just leaves another guy open, and you trust your playmakers, you trust your shooters around him to kind of hit shots. And so, and then him going out there and trolling Giannis with that quote, it's just putting the nail in the coffin at that point. It's like what are you doing up there with a huge smile on your face after the that game 7 performance you just put out there, on the brightest lights, where your opponent, the best player on the opposite team, put up 51 points on you. You pretty much got attacked consistently. That's one thing we didn't even talk about. Him getting attacked by Jason Tatum in those high pick and rolls all game long. Jason Tatum just knew that he can get whatever he wants. He can get to whatever he wanted on the floor if Joel Embiid was guarding him. And so it's gonna be a long offseason for the Philadelphia 76ers. I think within the coming days, Doc Rivers will be fired. Do I believe he deserves to be fired after this? Not necessarily, because I wouldn't put the blame on him for this series. But as always, the coaches are always the first ones to go, and then next thing you know, the players will kind of shift however they may be. But long off season for the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm sure we'll be right here to talk about it.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.